Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I'm your host and keeper, the Harry Channel, and with me tonight is Minion Geodes.
Hello.
Man, this daylight savings time is killing us. It's like everybody's got other things to do. It's like, gonna go outside.
Yeah.
Man, I keep amassing more and more ways to be incredibly boring.
What?
I've gotten sucked into the custom mechanical keyboard thing. Do you know about these people?
A little bit. I know it can get a little wild as far as, either trying to salvage parts from different keyboards to basically custom build your own, or in some cases, like even build like a frame from scratch or something like that. So
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I just keep finding new and new ways to become insufferable. Like I learned something about pepper today, and I'm like, oh, I need to buy some of this $20 an ounce pepper. It's like, and then I thought, no, you don't. You're already fancy enough as it is. You don't need special pepper from Cambodia.
hey, you never know. You never know when you might miss out on another rare opportunity. You're just saying, So I'd like to enable bad habits. That's all. That's me.
Well, okay, so I go to my office and I didn't have a fancy schmancy keyboard with me. And I use the old one that I've used for a long time. Still a good keyboard, a DOS keyboard. So it's, it's designed in the US, made in China, like pretty much everything else. It's considered to be a good keyboard, right? And I've been using these custom ones that I've made. I have 3 of them now. And I went to put my fingers into it, and it was just like, there's nothing there. There's no feedback. And when I was just young and started out with this stuff, I was used to these terminals. Like this thing called an ADM3A was pretty common, or a VT52. And those things would really spring back. It was like a keyboard attached to a monitor, and the whole terminal was just this one unit, and it weighed something like 100 pounds. It was insane. Hi, Skep.
Hi guys, I'm sorry I'm late.
That's okay. I'm just telling Geodes about ADM3A terminals, so just bear with me for a moment. So you would have to occasionally it would malfunction. You'd have to pick this thing up and drop it like an inch to sort of reset, kind of like kicking it or hitting it with a wrench. But the point is, I started using things where the keys gave you vigorous feedback. They were designed to sit in labs where hundreds or thousands of students would come in and use them. It wasn't just your personal thing, so they had to be like built like a brick shit house. Yeah, and so I went to use this keyboard, and it's like, oh my god, this is like, ugh. It was like sticking your hands in wet newspaper. It was not pleasant. Every day I become slightly more insufferable, is basically what I'm saying.
Hey, well, it's one of those keyboards where like you go to punch a button and like slowly but surely your fingers build 6-packs on them individually. So yeah.
Well, if I ever have to cover for, oh, hey, thanks, Assassin, I appreciate it for linking the show. If I ever have to cover for quiz on a Monday, I guess I could just do a stream of me lubing switches and making keyboards and stuff. Because this is the level of insanity you get to, where you actually take the little mechanical switches apart and put dielectric grease on them, and then put them back together and put them back into the board.
More than I do for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's really nice, but it's like my homemade bread. Why would I? Why do I spend all this time making homemade bread? It's really, really good. Is it worth it? Probably not to anybody but me.
That's the only person it has to be worth anything to.
Well, it's like I actually was having an issue with a mouse I just bought because it turns out the mouse that I bought has a quirky design feature where only 1 out of every 10 of these things like work perfectly, because the other 9 are manufactured in West Taiwan. And so I'm looking up all these tutorials. I'm like, oh, am I going to have to like solder on a whole new like mouse switch? Like, I don't want to do that. But then I found one where it's like, no, just take some like basically rubbing alcohol, unscrew the top of your mouse, and then just like rubbing alcohol on the switch for like a good solid minute, and just then click it repeatedly while you're doing it too. And that seems to have fixed it. So There you go.
Well, okay, the original mice actually had 3 mechanical rollers to basically give you this sense, and they would get gummed up because there was an actual ball that would roll around on the table and pick up gunk, and then it would gum up the works of the mouse, and so you fairly regularly would take these things apart and clean them. You know, that was the thing you used to do. These new optical mice generally are pretty, they tend to either work or not work. And I'm actually rather fond of the Logitech MX Anywhere 3.
They work till you drop them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the first
the
optical
ones with the
mouse,
balls will continue to work.
Yeah, the first optical mouse I ever used was the optical mouse, and it had like a special mouse pad that looked like this space age thing. Almost looked like a
it had the refracting mouse pad that we actually got those from Sun.
Yeah, well, that's where I got mine. It's from Sun, and I used that thing, and it's like, wow, you got rid of the wheel. It was awesome.
Yeah,
but now they've got gaming mice and all this sort of stuff. So I guess the reaction time, people care about stuff like how responsive the keyboard and the mouse is, because a millisecond might be the difference between getting fragged and not getting fragged.
I'm holding out for direct neuron connections. I want to mouse with my mind.
Yeah, no. I don't want anything logged in, connected to me like that.
Well, maybe they'll make it to where like it's a glove that you wear, and then like you just you twitch your finger and it's a click. So there you go.
Let's see, who do we have here who's spoken up? Assassin, thank you. Jack, Costin, Keeverdam. Excellent. So we've got our regulars with us. So
I was going to say the crew is here.
All right, so we should go ahead and get started, I guess.
I'm completely unprepared. You'll be happy to know. So you'll be getting fresh reactions from me.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry, Harry. I have not read this.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You know what? It just doesn't matter. We're just 3 guys hanging out with some friends, listening in. It's fine.
Just doesn't matter.
If it's something's not working, I'm just gonna old yeller the topic and we'll move on to the next one. Actually, we should just call it that. We just go, I'm not feeling it. It's old yeller time.
That's old yeller time.
Let's just put this topic out of its misery.
Oh man. Yeah, Heinlein always said, and he was right about this.
That's harsh even for me.
No, he said, always shoot your own dog. Never farm that out. It doesn't make it any easier.
No, I wouldn't think that it would.
He's right.
Okay, so
did it with my sisters.
As I say with God, is it Walk Don't Run Productions? This is Ann Applebaum, and she's an insufferable C word. Let's listen to what she has to say.
Let's take a.
Amazing. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
This is regarding the Hunter Biden laptop.
Chicago. My question is for Miss Applebaum. So in 2020, you wrote, "Those who live outside the Fox News bubble do not, of course, need to learn any of the stuff about Hunter Biden," referring to his laptop, of course. A poll later after that found that if voters knew about the content of the laptop, 16% of Joe Biden voters would have acted differently. Now, of course, we know a few weeks ago, the New York Times confirmed that the content is real. Do you think the media acted inappropriately when they instantly dismissed Hunter Biden's laptop as Russian disinformation? And what can we learn from that in ensuring that what we label as disinformation is truly disinformation and not reality?
Okay, so before she gives her answer, do you think she's going to, A, apologize for being a terrible journalist and say she's going to do better from now on? Or B, double down and say, you get what you get, peons?
Yeah, you get what you get, and Hunter Biden is, so much better than Donald Trump. Fuck you.
Yeah,
it's clearly A, Harry. I'm just saying, she's learned from her past mistakes.
Yeah, she's clearly learned from her past mistakes.
Yeah.
It's gonna be A. Let's go with A.
Of course it will.
Okay, here we go.
My problem with Hunter Biden's laptop is I think it's totally irrelevant. I mean, it's not whether it's disinformation or, I don't think the Hunter Biden's business relationships have anything to do with who should be president of the United States. So I don't find it to be interesting. I mean, that would be my problem with that as a major news story.
No, we don't find.
Well, there you have it. We shouldn't be worried about it. Therefore, it doesn't matter if they suppressed it and
here's
threatened.
what she meant to say.
Okay.
Here's what she meant to say. She says, I'm not interested in this Hunter Biden who claims that he's the president's son. And I guess maybe he is. I don't know. This is what she's really thinking.
Mhm.
But, I don't care what little peccadillos Jr. got into. This has no bearing on the president because you don't have videotape of the president actually being fed the dollar bills by Ukrainian and Russian oligarchs.
Mhm.
Because you don't have this absolutely dispositive, evidence here, evidence that you can show the world, showing that there's absolutely no two ways about it. I'm going to hide in that crevice. I'm going to hide in that corner, and just say, well, I'm not interested in Hunter Biden, and let it go at that. That this is a classic, I'm better than you are. You don't deserve an answer. You'll take what I give you kind of an attitude. This pisses me off more than I can tell you, because this woman has obviously had a decent education. I'll bet she's well honored and beloved by her profession and people who know her. And she thinks she's just, a big goddamn deal. But in point of fact, she is letting down all the people who educated her by doing the easy thing, which is climbing aboard an ideological train and partying with your friends, ignoring reality. And that, that's the responsibility, in my opinion, of thinking people. If we're going to be successful as a human race, is the smart people have to do the right thing a lot of times in a row. The universe is trying to kill us. We don't need to cooperate.
Well, where to begin? Where to unpack what you just
some waterfront.
How to unpack what Skep just said. So, now in theory, she did what these people always do and started with a germ of truth. And the germ of truth is, in some sense, you're electing Joe Biden, not Hunter Biden.
Yep.
Therefore, it really shouldn't matter.
Right.
However,
is there any possibility that Hunter could influence his father's decisions? I don't know.
Well, if he's running around telling people that Hunter is the smartest person that he knows,
is that cause for concern?
I might think that possibly the decisions that Hunter makes might have some relevance on Joe's suitability to be president. I mean, just sort of starting there.
Well, no, I would be less concerned if he said Joy Behar was the most intelligent person he ever knew. I would be less concerned.
Well, Joy Behar's never been a consultant for a Burisma.
How do you know?
I mean, Hunter Biden is an energy expert.
She's probably better at hushing up the payoff than he is.
I don't know. I'm not sure Joy Behar is really good at much of anything. I mean, supposedly she was really good at emceeing open mic nights in New York back in the day. I've heard people say nice things about that she was a really good MC for comedy clubs a long time ago.
She holds down her part of the set pretty effectively. All that fat.
I remember when Whoopi Goldberg was actually pretty funny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she had this bit that she did about, she wasn't worried about getting pregnant because I can't remember if it was her boyfriend or her husband had a job painting, like putting the paint on the tips of nuclear warheads. So his cream had gone off.
Yeah.
I've butchered the delivery, but the way she did it back in the day was actually pretty damn funny.
Yeah. Well, she can do it, and she can say things with a little bit of attitude. She's a bit of a vocal artist too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she can use her voice to convey a wide variety of sentiments. I actually think she's pretty talented. She's an utterly misled ideologue. She doesn't know anything about politics and shoots her mouth off and looks like an idiot doing it. But as an actor or a comedian, she's actually pretty talented, I think.
Well, she's into diva mode now. All of them are.
Yeah,
it's just they really should just call it what the four divas and leave it at that, because they're all ego-driven pieces of crap. But
Yeah.
anyway, back to Hunter Biden and the Hunter
The
Biden problem.
conservatives.
I mean, you're correct. We don't have any video of Joe Biden, for instance, taking his 10% of the money as the big guy,
Right.
taking off all his clothes and rolling around on it like Scrooge McDuck. We don't have that
Exactly.
video.
Diving into the money swimming pool.
But the important part here is that Ann Applebaum doesn't think that we should think it's important, and I think it's not up to her. If a news organization wants to cover this, and other news organizations circle the wagons with big tech to suppress the story, that's not the same thing as you just deciding not to cover it because you don't think it's relevant.
That's right. Can you imagine the reaction of an actual journalism professor to a journalism student who gave the answer that she just gave?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If he was any good, he'd rain all over that. So what is the matter with you? What is wrong with your attitude? Do you not know why you're here?
Well, okay, here's a thing that Geodes and I talked about briefly. I'm going to go ahead and introduce it. Let's just say that this may not be the highest quality source, but we're going to kick this around. We're going to kick this around just a little bit anyway, because nothing really matters.
Yeah.
Okay, according to this thing called the National Pulse, I do like this graphic they have here. Hunter Biden firm invested in VR metaverse used by child sex groomers, and his laptop shows he had an account. Okay, so there's so many levels, I almost feel like I have to defend Hunter Biden a little bit. The fact that he had an account on this thing where bad people tended to hang out, and a company that he was involved with helped finance the creation of it. There's an awful lot of supposition here, but...
The problem is that, like, because Harry asked me to go over the sources and, like, see if I can verify some of this. They definitely make a good case for the company that that Hunter was working for, where he was an executive manager, I think is what his title was. Being on the board, they actually have archive links where they had his page, as well as a few others linked onto this site for I think it was called it was Rosemont Seneca. That's right. That's what it was. And they did in fact help, and they did invest and help fund this virtual reality site called IMVU, and they advertised that on their site as well. So they confirmed all that. And there was an article that they linked back to that's written by the same group, the National Pulse, where they were kind of talking about like ties to China, and basically talking about the more or less how he might have been financed by them. And so there's a bunch of stuff tying into all this stuff, basically explaining, that there was probably some shady stuff going on as far as like where money was coming from and where it was going and where it wasn't going. I think they actually did an okay job at that. But then you start kind of at the further down you get into the article, first off, they start bringing in stories that are not directly related, which I think is a bit of a problem. And then also there's at least one point where they cite a poll, and I go and look at the poll to try and find the numbers and breakdowns. It's a poll that Daily Mail reports on. They don't actually link to the poll. They just talk about it. And it was unclear exactly like whether the poll was based on like 5 kids reviewing these sites where they face like the most like egregious like content that came up, or whether it was like a larger study group. But it read more like what some of the articles that were coming out during Gamergate, where they were trying to say like, this is why harassment is bad and why we need to censor the internet. And they were citing it instead as a way of explaining like, oh, this is where child exploitation happens. And it was just like, this is not the best journalism I've ever seen.
No, this is a bit of a smear piece, and they're trying to be provocative. But I think the fairest way to summarize this is Hunter Biden was in business with one of John Kerry's relatives, because all these kids of politicians like to take huge amounts of other people's money and hang out and do stuff, apparently. They're all basically jerking each other off, is what it sounds like. And they were involved in putting together a VR thing, which has a vibrant young user base, but also allows adult content and various fandoms to coexist.
Yeah.
Thereby placing younger people in close sort of digital proximity to things which normally they would be protected from.
Yeah. And one thing too, with the when it links to the like trying to reference the adult content stuff, it links to the actual page for IMVU. I don't know if they've updated their terms of service since they started reporting on this, so it kind of makes it a little tricky. But it sounds like in order to get like adult content, you have to pay an extra like amount of money, like I guess per month or something. So that was kind of it sounds like they actually did have some kind of financing barricade effectively. So I now that may have changed. It may have been different back in like 2017 or whenever this was all going on, but that's what it looks like the policy is now. So
yeah, it's more smoke about Hunter Biden. There's no fire, but there's just a little bit more smoke.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't necessarily prove anything. Anyway, just throwing it out there. Thought people might be kind of interested in it. So get rid of that.
I want to find out where Christopher Hines, what his background is. Christopher Hines is, he's been on boards of corporations. He's a former member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Cool. What are his
Really?
qualifications for that, Skep?
I don't know. And it's interesting. It's not on his Wikipedia page. His Wikipedia metadata includes Yale University alumni. Of course, that could be his stepdad. Harvard Business School alumni. Business people from Pittsburgh. I know he settled in Pittsburgh. I just wonder. I just noticed that Chris Hines had been on the Council of Foreign Relations. And I wondered what the hell distinguishes him to be working for a think tank like Council on Foreign Relations, which is it's a heavy duty think tank.
Well, nepotism is a checkbox.
Yeah, that's all I can think of. It just pisses me off.
Well, speaking of NGOs, one of them has decided to spew their ideas via The Guardian, and they're trying to basically spin, we want you to do this anyway, as to stick it to Putin. We're not going to talk about the battles and who's winning and any of that sort of stuff, but this to me isn't really a story about Putin so much as globalists wanting to reshape the world energy economy. So I went ahead and allowed it for this particular time. Ban European flights and car use in cities to hurt Putin, report urges. Yeah.
Which cities?
You know, the big ones. Mostly they're talking about Europe.
Oh, they're saying stop driving everywhere.
Yeah.
And put the squeeze on Putin because you get 6% of your oil from Putin, and that'll really hurt him.
Yeah, these first few paragraphs have it here. Flights should be banned in continental Europe and car use banned in city centers to save energy and prevent Vladimir Putin profiting from fossil fuel sales, campaigners have said. Never let a crisis go to waste. It would be possible for Europe to quickly end its reliance on oil and gas from Russia by taking strong measures, according to a report.
Why didn't we think of that before?
By climate advisors don't care, analysts don't care, energy and sustainability ops specialists don't care. Policies include rationing, with everybody in Europe allowed the same minimum amount of energy to use.
It'll be amazing.
And limiting thermostats to 18 centigrade in winter.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yep.
Now this is some big brain crap going on here. Can you imagine? Here's your allocation of carbon that you can use, and while we're at it, your thermostat can't be above 18C. And don't worry, we're gonna check.
we're coming
We're
by
going to
to
drive around with
weld-
like a FLIR camera.
we're gonna drive around and weld the thing. It has the summer number and the winter number. You can operate it in those two modes, or you can turn it off. Have a nice day.
Yeah. The biggest problem is gas. In total, last year, Europe imported 155 billion cubic meters of gas from Russia. The author said critics of the EU's oil and gas policy have pointed out that hydrocarbon sales are financing the war in Ukraine. Even the EU's top diplomat, don't care, said recently, we've given Ukraine nearly $1 billion. That might seem like a lot, but $1 billion is what we're paying Putin every day for the energy he provides us. Since the start of the war, we have given him $35 billion compared to $1 billion we've given to Ukraine to arm itself. Now, that's some beautiful spin that this EU nitwit has come up with.
Economically illiterate. It's actually changing the color of my hair.
Well, is there like
My
some
teeth
sort of
hurt.
fund
That's the
that
wrong.
is there some sort of mutual fund that only invests that basically is pegged as an index to the economic well-being of the EU?
Right, exactly.
Because I want to sell short
Yeah.
on shares of that if this is what they're going to do.
I'll promise you that's not a marginable security, so you won't be able to short it. But it's a good play.
But why don't they just source gas from Taco Bell? I just don't know why they don't do that.
Well, I think the tubing required might not be latex free. I'm worried about some of the problems, but yeah, this is the kind of big brain thinking that's coming up. If you unless you hate Ukrainians, we're going to have to set the internal thermostats to 18C. To replace the gas Europe buys from Russia, the authors recommend measures including stopping the nuclear phase-out in Germany, which is actually a good idea, Sweden and Belgium, reducing heating in buildings by 4 degrees centigrade. That's like 9 degrees Fahrenheit for everybody else.
18 degrees is 64 degrees Fahrenheit, ladies and
Well,
gentlemen.
just
and
imagine-
that's cold.
Well, just imagine you have the thermostat set where you like it, and then somebody walks over and turns it down 9 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, exactly right. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly what.
Because
that
that's
is.
what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And fast-track deployment of additional solar and wind generation.
Well-
As if they're not doing all these things anyway.
Well, on a serious note too, one of the things I remember hearing about, of course, has always been like, especially with like this, and this is on a slightly side note, but related to it. The current Pope, I remember, was going on about like how climate change was a major crisis and how Americans need to stop using air conditioning and all this other stuff. Like, I think it was literally that same year or like 1 year later, they had a tons of cases in France where there was no air conditioning, where all these elderly people were passing away from like heat over like overheating. So it's one of those things where it's like, do you really want these people actually mandating this stuff anyways? It's just
I like
they
air
don't seem-
conditioners. I have 4 of them.
Yeah.
Why do I have 4 air conditioners? I just like them that much. Maybe I'll start making custom air conditioners.
But yeah, it's
Oh.
ridiculous.
I'm done. Well, we talked about this earlier, and I think, Geodes, you sent me a thing about how to save fuel. Unfortunately, it was behind a paywall.
Oh, it was?
So I had to pick up this miserable substitute from the penny hoarder. The point being that there are tons and tons of ways to save gas. Now, they talk about using apps to find the cheap gas. Skip the premium option. Now, this one interested me quite a bit because I don't know if you've ever looked at what octane actually means, Geodes, but I'm pretty sure Skep has.
Oh, if anybody who's had a year of organic chemistry knows how alkanes work.
Yeah, we're going to be
all
good.
that works.
We're going to be good. Higher octane gas isn't necessary or beneficial in most cars, so you're just spending more money when you buy premium. Premium gas can cost about 20 to 40 cents per gallon more than regular grade fuel. Use regular grade gasoline unless your car manufacturer specifically requires premium. Now, this is one of those things that if we were fact checking, you could say it's partially true. It's true that you cannot sell a car in the United States, for instance, that won't run on regular gas. Run meaning a very
Operate.
fuzzy, operate. that doesn't mean that it won't retard the spark timing to the point
Right.
where you have no horsepower.
That's it.
Mhm.
And on the cars that makes a difference. That really makes a difference.
Yeah.
But it's not very many cars. It really is not.
Well, yeah, my car runs on premium. My car has a big-ass turbocharger. It needs premium to run properly.
As does
I
mine.
could run it on not premium, but that would be stupid.
Yeah.
My motorcycles run on regular. It's fine. And I use those to cut down on the fuel thing. So whenever you read stuff like this, you need to be a little bit critical. But fuel rewards, credit cards, because yeah, if basically by buying one vendor's gas, they'll give you money back, you might as well take it. They talk about things like ride sharing, planning routes, reducing your idle time. Now, reducing your idle time is obviously a big one because the emission controls on cars actually don't work when the car's not moving. Little known fact. So in terms of smog and wasted energy and everything else, they've got these. But what kind of sucks are the engines that just sort of turn themselves off. So you show up at a light and you idle for a few seconds and then it turns itself off. A lot of the newer cars do this. And then when you go to start, there's this lag before you can actually start moving forward a lot of times.
It's what I call the horn time.
Yeah, they actually had to re-engineer the starters because they were starting the cars so much more often than with the old designs. They had to beef
Burn
up
out
the starter
starters.
motors because they would burn out with this
Yep.
practice regularly.
Yeah.
Well, most people who can get away with this, their car already does it for them, is the point.
Yeah. Well, on the other article that I was trying to share with you, that one of the things they actually talk about is like really where it's useful, especially useful, is like, for example, like if you're waiting for like a train to pass, for example, with like, you know, like I guess like 30, 40 plus cars behind it, you know, and that where it's like it's going to take a very long time for things to get moving again. Otherwise, it's not very useful in short bursts too. So
Yeah. Well, they say accelerate more slowly and coast more. Okay, coasting, that's a complicated topic anyway. We don't even want to get into the whole why you shouldn't put your car in neutral or coast. It's a control issue and it's not really within the
Also, live on as high a hill as you can. If you live on a high enough hill, you'll never have to use your motor. You can just coast all the way down the hill whenever you use your car.
Yeah. Reduce your use of your heater and air conditioning, or bite me. That's the other option. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the main one is slow down. So when I was driving home today to set up the show, I was sitting here watching. The average speed was in a 65 mile an hour zone. People were going 75 to 80, and a few were going more than that. Almost nobody was going less than 75.
Yeah.
If there's, I mean, yes, I understand gas prices are high, but for the bulk of people, they're high in the sense of, I don't want to pay this. Because if they really were that high, people would slow down to save gas.
It's the incremental savings. You can't get enough savings to provide you enough satisfaction to make you discipline yourself to slow down. If everybody drove at 55 miles an hour, no faster than that in this country, we'd save a lot of gasoline. You really
or even
waste a lot of-
65. Even just the speed. If everybody just on the freeway
exactly.
drove more or less the speed limit, we would
Yeah, it would
save
be
a
a huge
ton of
help.
gas.
It really would. And being the son of an engineer, part of my math training growing up was doing the miles per gallon and what's the most efficient rate for the car to run at. And Dad would, on these cross-country trips, we got the first Plymouth that ever had cruise control in it. Plymouth Belvedere station wagon with cruise control. And he loved that, man. He'd set that and he'd say, okay, Frank, I'm setting it for, 62 miles an hour. Let's see how many miles we get, and I had to keep all the paperwork and do all the arithmetic. And that was how he trained me to do relatively large sums and quotients and the like in my head.
Didn't they have tiny little film projectors built into the back of the headrests so that you could watch like Tom and Jerry cartoons or something? I mean, how did you manage not to just beat up on all your siblings if you didn't have your own personal entertainment system in the back of the car?
I had a ukulele and my family actually liked to hear me play. They liked it when I played.
Oh, okay.
And so
There
I
you
had
go.
that. I had tons of books, and sometimes we would sing just as a family. Is that
Okay.
weird?
No, it's not. But me being a dick, I'm going to say the following. This might not make me very popular, and I'm sorry if there's anybody in chat who's suffering from this stuff. I apologize. I'm just being a jerk. But to my mind, when I look around me and my lying eyes show me people not changing their behavior at all, it means that the gas price thing is largely just a whine. If you're not going to change your behavior in response to the price change,
You're
it isn't
absolutely
really
right.
hurting you that much.
You're absolutely right, and that's the real test. Does it hurt bad enough to alter your behavior? If it
Yeah.
doesn't, don't come talking to me, because
Everything is revealed preference. If I don't see people change their behavior, then it almost doesn't matter.
behavior is reinforcing. You really do have choices over most of the things in your life, and you can, yes, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, so a bunch of other stuff. Tire pressure, absolutely. By the way, your tires will last longer, and most tire failures happen when you're more than 10% off the optimal pressure. So
Yep.
for safety's sake, it's actually really important to check your tire pressure. Check your gas cap, lighten your car. So don't drive around like I did today with 200 pounds of food that I bought at the warehouse supply place when I left. Don't do what I did. Remove the racks from your car. No, get bent. Yeah, use the right oil during changes. You can actually save a little tiny bit of energy by using an energy-saving oil. But check the manual that comes with your car. Don't put energy-saving oil in certain cars, or you will actually cause yourself more.
What is
more
the
problems.
difference with the energy-saving oil that they're talking about? How is that different?
It's a viscosity thing.
It's lower viscosity. Or higher?
Sometimes lower. We do not want to get into this conversation.
Okay.
But basically, motor oil is extremely complicated. It has, especially the multiple viscosity ones that change the viscosity based on temperature. And
Now,
all
that
of
I
these oils,
understand.
they
I
have a
understand
base
that.
stock and they have an additive package. And the additive package
Oh.
can change the way certain parts of the car wear. Like molybdenum is something that they add to motor oil. Or they call it moly. And so some oils contain moly, some don't. Some engines can use it, some can't. By reducing the internal friction of the engine,
Mhm.
you can get slightly better gas mileage, but it's usually just a few percent.
Okay.
Yeah. This is one of those rabbit holes that I went down to. I used to have a friend who was he got himself into a multi-level marketing thing for AMSOIL. And hearing the AMSOIL people are great because you kind of have to become sort of religious when you join their franchise. And they will go on and on about how their diester based synthetic stock is superior to the one that Mobile One uses, blah, 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 blah. If you want to run into somebody who's infinitely more boring than me, get into a conversation with a synthetic oil salesman.
And
Heartily recommended.
And are you saying a good icebreaker and a way to grease the tracks would be to start on this conversation topic?
Oh yeah, actually, there are a lot of forums. There are a lot of forums on online where you can go for certain types of auto communities. Where if you just want to start a flame war, just start talking about motor oil. Any conversation about motor oil,
There you go.
and it will just turn into a huge shit show very, very quickly.
Yep.
I know. I've been in a few of those. I mean, I largely just think as long as you use good oil and you change it regularly and keep it topped off, you're going to be okay. But
Yeah.
if you look at newer cars, they're actually designed to work with like 0W and 20W. And these cars have different types of rings in them and the pistons than some of the older cars. It's like giving somebody medical advice. I wouldn't give somebody medical advice unless I knew a lot more about them. I was like qualified. I wouldn't tell you what kind of oil to put in your car, and these people shouldn't either.
There you go.
Because details really matter.
I
Like
give
where
medical
you live.
advice to my enemies.
Well, where you live, how you drive, what kind of car you have. These things all matter, and you can't just give somebody one recommendation. Okay,
So,
before I bore everybody to tears.
Well, Also, real quick, two things in chat. One, Campbellistic Wizard says Gas Buddy. Very true. That's a very useful website. I've used it a lot to get
Oh, sweet.
very cheap gas prices in town. And two, Assassin does want to know why we're not supposed to coast the engine.
As it's been explained to me, and I'm not sure I completely buy it, it is a control issue. When you're going down a hill and you've got engine braking going on, you don't have to be in a really low gear. Everything is sort of easily controllable. When you're sort of plummeting down a hill with the clutch in, and then suddenly you have to change something, the transition to having the motor engaged and the brakes and everything is a lot harder to manage.
Plus, you're accustomed to having the motor engaged, and you're accustomed to the car handling like that.
Yeah. So it's mostly just kind of a safety thing. I admit that if there's nothing in front of me and there's a big old long hill, the clutch goes in and I don't care. But if you're going down hills and the engine braking is actually helping to keep your brakes from overheating, for instance, that's a whole different situation. Engine braking actually is pretty darn handy. And as you get used to electric vehicles more often, the electric engines basically have engine braking as they recover energy. So I don't think people will even think about things like coasting the way they do now in 15 years.
That's how they do the perpetual motion thing, right?
Yeah.
That's how it always keeps running. You never have to, add electricity.
Oh, God. The chat is so helpful today.
That's so cool.
Hey, salt water is really bad for body panels. You can always tell a car that's been in either icy weather or near the ocean.
Oh, no kidding.
And of course, the final recommendation is buy a more efficient car. Yeah, I'm going to get right on that. Thanks for that, penny saver.
Buy a Tesla. That's what they want.
Okay, so let's go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
We can old yeller this if we have to.
I can link the Congress bill directly as well too, so I might do that.
Sure,
too.
knock stuff out.
Yeah,
I mean, in a nutshell, this is a great picture. I love this picture of this woman. I'm not sure what that look is. It looks like she has an itch, but she knows it would be inappropriate to scratch it.
I think what she's doing is just tossing back her head at the fact that she has managed to do what the market could not, and that is to cap insulin prices. So those insulin prices aren't going to go up because the insulin doesn't cost more.
Yeah, so this is where it's actually hard. This is actually where it's hard as a host to figure out the right thing to do. I've read through this a few times and had this conversation with some of my liberal friends.
Yeah.
So I can actually elevator statement this entire topic and shut down all conversation, which would save everybody time, but it doesn't really make for a very good show. So let me see if I can,
not entertaining.
If I can set the pace correctly here. Insulin is something that type 1 diabetics need to stay alive, right? It is primarily made by 3 major companies, make 90% of the insulin that's sold in the US.
Correct.
Prices have been going up, up, up for this life-saving thing. And you would think that they would not be going up, but they are going up. And there's reasons why they're going up. And so the Congress has, as part of Build Back Better, wanted to cap the out-of-pocket expenses for people with insurance to $35 a month. They're not putting a price limit on the insulin itself, because this is actually very, very misleading. If you dig your way into this stuff, what they're trying to do is they're trying to do this. So they had a separate piece of legislation because Build Back Better got destroyed by Joe Manchin. Thank you, Joe. So they decided to break this out as a separate piece of legislation, and it passed the House on strictly party line votes. The Republicans said this is a terrible idea because it doesn't solve any of the basic problems. They're actually right. The Democrats wanted to push this through to show how important it is because, of course, Trump actually did some things to try to drive the price of insulin down, And Biden, on day one, when he was canceling the Keystone Pipeline, decided to cancel those because he's a friend of the working man. So we've got this situation where they're trying to say, well, there's this market failure because the prices are going up and we're not seeing competition. Therefore, we need to step in and protect the voters by saying that the insurance companies can essentially only let their out-of-pocket be $35. This doesn't change the price of insulin. It doesn't change the price that the insurance companies pay for it. And it doesn't change the overall cost sharing that's going to happen because the insurance companies are basically just going to eat this and then pass it on to people in the rates. So it doesn't fix any of the problems.
That's not how insurance works, by the way. That's not how any of this works.
Yeah.
That's what they wish would happen, but that's not what will happen.
Yeah. Basically, the consumer and other consumers who don't have type 1 diabetes are going to be the ones that are going to end up eating it.
That's exactly right.
It doesn't change anything. So the real question here is, why is the market not fixing this on its own? What is it that's actually in the way? So I found another piece. Let's see, we're not going to actually play this.
I have type 1
Shut up. This actually from, what is it, Verge Science? Yeah, Verge Science actually is 9 minutes long and does a really good job of explaining what's going on. The main issue is a patent issue. So of these three companies that are creating this stuff, it used to be that they would create insulin by taking pig pancreases, grinding them up, and then purifying the insulin that they obtained from them. Now, they would give this to human beings, and a lot of humans, well, enough humans, had reactions to the leftover bits of animal protein there that it was a problem. So in the late 70s, they figured out how to basically take E. coli and get E. coli to basically just produce this. So you have a vat.
Synthesized.
You've got a big vat full of organisms, which just, in the course of living, just create insulin. Human insulin at that. And then you remove the stuff from the vat, you purify the insulin, and you have a product that's superior. You'd think the price would be going down, but it's not. Part of the problem is that even though the patents on these things have expired in many cases, they're doing this thing called evergreening, where they make just tiny, tiny, tiny little tweaks to the process.
Now,
and then re-enable the patents. So Novo Nordisk has patents out to, I think, 2034 by making very small changes that fundamentally don't change the product being sold. Go ahead, Skep.
There are several things going on. First of all, they have a motive for evergreening. You've got a company. You're making insulin. You're about to lose the patent on your drug, and the generics are going to take off. That insulin is going to contribute half of what it's going, if that, maybe a tenth of what it contributes this year to your bottom line next year. What are you going to do about that? The motivation is very obvious for evergreening, which has been going on since the days of tetracycline. I mean, it really, and they attach like a slightly different sugar handle on it on a part of the molecule that isn't even active, and call it a new drug, get a new patent on it, bang, another 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, what they need to do, there's several pieces that need to be touched, and this is why government regulation of this kind of stuff just never fucking works. You have to go in and you have to find some sort of protection, some sort of engineered commercial solution that works better than phony patents. You also need some changes to patent law to tighten up on evergreening, and there is absolutely nobody who is there to represent that point of view.
Yeah.
That's a problem too, because it's the right thing to do. It would be best for both market and consumer and industry. It'd be good for all of them, but because their shorter term interests don't align on those axes, you can't get everybody in favor of it. So that's in a perfect world, that's how you would approach that problem. A workable solution for now is really tough. I mean, you know, you may. It's easy to hate the pharmaceutical companies, and they do some really wretched stuff from time to time. But the only thing you'll hate more is when they're gone. If you chase these guys out of business and they start doing something else, and we start having real medicine shortages, you know, things where you can't get an antibiotic when you need it, you will see this country react spasmodically. It will start to incent that kind of behavior to correct that situation. People they will march, and it'll be a real march on Washington if they can't get their medicine. Now, the other thing about insulin is it's doubled in, I think, between 2012 2016 or something. It doubled in price. That's a huge increase, and this is something where a vial, a 50 by 50, which a typical adult diabetic is going to use 3 of these a month. One vial of that costs $490, basically $500 right now. That's more than double what the price was, 10 years ago.
Well, that's partially true. We're going to get to some of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
if I don't have the
you're correct again, but this is where I get to hopefully tell you some things that you didn't already know, which will be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying that's part of the problem.
So here's the other problem. It's not just about the patents, because we're talking about this isn't like a drug where you get ibuprofen. This is a compound that your body already produces. So you're not patenting insulin. You're patenting a process to make insulin, right? But then you have to get this thing approved. Now, this isn't like a regular drug. This is a complicated, huge molecule compared to something that's very simple, like ibuprofen or acetylsalicylic acid. Skep can draw those in his sleep, pretty much, with a pen and paper. This is something that this is actually a very complicated molecule that's produced as part of, it's one of these things. It's one of the building blocks that you need for life to metabolize sugar and things in your muscles. You need insulin.
About 20 stereoisomers too.
Yeah, it's a big, complicated thing. Now, each of the processes that make this from the 3 companies produce a slightly different molecule depending on the plasmids that they've put in the E. coli. So when you say, I want to make insulin as like some company, I want to make a generic insulin, you have to then go to the FDA and go through a different certification than you would for just a regular drug. Biologics are not licensed and approved the same way as something like ibuprofen would be. So, because it's a lot harder to assess their safety and efficacy than it is a traditional drug. So what the FDA is actually trying to do is put competition back into the market by fixing the process for biologics to allow it a faster verification for similar organic molecules. So since somebody who produces a generic, what they have to do is they have to show that their thing works and is also safe. And so if the FDA can fix that part of the process, that's going to help drive competition. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is, Lilly doesn't particularly want to have the government start fixing their prices. So lo and behold, they actually have programs. Lilly's one of the vendors, where people who meet certain criteria can actually pay $35 a month for their insulin. Now, obviously not everybody. They would just go out of business if they did this for everybody. But there are programs out there where there are various types of discount programs where you can save quite a bit off of the stuff that's already there. And the other manufacturers have them as well. So in addition to that, where's the competition? Well, here's some of it. Walmart unveils low-price insulin as more patients with diabetes struggle to pay for the drug. So Skep was right about the $400. But you can get insulin that's actually a biologic that's similar to the regular one, made by one of the companies that makes insulin, They're basically making a cheaper insulin to compete with themselves. Now, the economics of why that makes sense is complicated again, but you want to extract as much money as you can from every group of consumers possible. So you're looking at about $73 a vial instead of the $400 that Skep's talking about. And if your doctor writes the prescription correctly, you can go to Sam's Club and you can buy this insulin. It's available now for a lot less money. And it is effectively the same product. This is exactly what we need more of, in my opinion.
Hammer in chat asks, could you import insulin as well?
That's another thing that people are looking at, because why shouldn't we just be able to buy it in Canada? And people do buy it in Canada and bring it across the border. Yeah. But in terms of you just being able to go to CanadaRx.com, there's the small issue of you have to, whether it was legal or not, I think there's some issues with shipping because of temperature control. Mm-hmm. Insulin is extremely fragile. Right, Skep?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So there is one more piece to this. It's actually gotten so bad because it isn't just the US. There are countries where they literally just can't get the damn stuff. There's a group of people who founded the Open Insulin Foundation. And what they are trying to do in a small lab in Oakland, California, is actually produce a blueprint for open source insulin production. So they're designing the plasmids, they're working with the bacteria, they're trying to produce insulin and purify it and get it into a point where it could actually get government approval. And people could, in small labs, actually make this all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Skep?
The people's insulin.
Yeah, basically, roll your own. This is a really, really, really hard thing to do, but they've been showing some promise, actually. I mean, I could easily see them crowdsourcing the money that would be required to get this thing approved if they get it to the point where it's ready for that. And if the drug companies were providing things at a competitive price that people could afford, I don't think you'd be seeing a group like this, because this is a really hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anyway,
I just like the idea of like a home chemistry lab, like Breaking Bad style, except it's all to make insulin, like in your RV. So.
Well, there's a reason why it's happening in Oakland, because you're close to all the biotech stuff, and they can gobble up used and surplus equipment that's being replaced with newer stuff for very little money. You can get a CRISPR machine for $10,000, I've heard.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Which is insane. So you can get millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment really on the cheap around here.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha.
Anyway, did you want to add anything, Skep?
No, the only thing I would say on these guys going into the business for themselves, trying to make an affordable insulin is, they've still got to meet the quality control standards that the big companies have to meet, and they have to conform to all the regulations that those big companies have to conform to. And those are some of the things that add in some of the cost, in my opinion. This is an opinion. I don't know that that's true.
Well, anyway, it seemed like a good idea at the time to talk about insulin. Hopefully that wasn't too dry, but it's kind of life or death stuff for some people. Mm-hmm. And I don't want it to get to the point where the government just does stupid things, because you know what? The reason this is screwed up is your fault. You just doing random shit to try to fix it isn't going to make it any better. The best thing you could honestly do is kind of get out of the way a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's time for patent reform on a lot of this stuff. Because this whole thing where they give these guys patents for things of little to no consequence in terms of process is just got to stop. Anyway, moving on.
Friday, someone wrote the
this.
words white and colored over water fountains here at McClatchy High School,
This is
obviously
Sacramento.
a reference to the Jim Crow era. Tonight, we're learning the district is disciplining the student involved, but it stopped short of calling it racial hatred or a hate crime. Now, the district hired someone to oversee race and equity, which includes investigating racial incidents.
Okay, there was a hate crime in quotes where somebody wrote something white and colored over the water fountains. But the district has hired somebody to handle these race type issues, so there's somebody whose job it is to deal with these types of things.
An expert from Black Lives Matter?
Yes, some kind of expert from Black Lives Matter. So as the story unfolds, let's see how the expert responds.
Mark Harris tells me a black female student confessed to the vandalism, and the investigation shows her on camera. He tells me the student said she did it as a prank. Now, this is a sensitive topic for...
Okay, so the person who actually did this was a black female student who's been caught on camera. I wonder, so Geodes, what do you think's going to happen? The guy who's there to handle race and equity, do you think he's going to accept this and say, well, I'm glad that there was nothing really here to look at? Or do you think he's going to double down?
Oh, I mean, clearly there's nothing here to look at. It's not a problem.
It's not a problem. Everything's fine.
This is fine as things are. Meanwhile, increased screaming is happening somewhere.
Well, let's see how things panned out at the state capitol here in California last month.
For so many, because Sac City Unified School District has been plagued with racial incidents. The most recent includes students seeing several buildings at Abraham Lincoln Elementary School.
That one's so bad we had to put it in witness protection.
And the N-word. The NAACP and community activists say they want to meet with the district to talk about how they can support black students through these events. Meanwhile, the district refers to the McClatchy incident as troubling vandalism.
Come on.
I don't believe that those words that were on those water fountains were racist. I do not believe they were hate crime or hate speech. Part of it, quite honestly, is because the admitted perpetrators...
Yeah, we can't punish this woman the same way as we would a student of a different color. Because when she does it, it's not hate speech.
Well,
are we all on the same page?
No, it's literally what he thinks.
Yeah, and then there's part B of this. I have to pause it every now and then so we don't get copy struck, so sorry.
Yeah, no.
An African-American young woman. I disagree at it being a hate crime because at the end of the day, we understand when you have colored on one water faucet and white on another kind of water faucet, what that means. Whether it's 1950 or 2022.
That was content free.
However, some activists question the evidence, citing mistrust of the district's handling of racism in the past. And I did ask if there had been any movement with the Abraham Lincoln case, and I've heard so far there's been no progress yet.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what the hell happened in this well-run operation, but basically they went on to say, why is it that they found this girl so quickly on the videotape when so many of these other hate crimes have gone unsolved for such a long period of time? So basically, by finding that it was a hoax committed by a black female student, what we're really revealing is just how racist the school really is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was just an irresponsible prank by an otherwise perfect student. Because that's definitional. She just happens to be a black female student. And, as such, is not subject to any of the rules for those other people. The other people have to follow.
Well, I mean, is there a special pass for it's just a prank, bro, that black girls
exactly
get?
What's going on here. This poor girl has suffered from being black, her whole life. She's grown up in Sacramento, which is a deeply, deeply depressed place. Worse than Mali, really.
It's MAGA country.
Well, other than the fact that it's like 120 during the day most of the summer, it's actually a pretty nice town.
No, Sacramento is very nice. It has a lot of Tony areas, very, very nice areas. I can't afford a house there. I mean, it's a nice place to live. This girl is probably not growing up poor. I don't think she's felt the slave master's lash. What they're doing is excusing behavior that the grandparents of that little girl would have beat the black off her if she'd pulled a stunt like that and brought that home back in their generation.
Yep.
This is just so wrong. We are really doing a disservice to these children by not disciplining them.
No, children need boundaries, and then the boundaries need to be removed. Letting her get away with this, I mean, okay, let's take the most cynical interpretation. At the very least, by their logic, not necessarily by mine, but by their logic, she is fanning the flames of racial tension with the thing that she did.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Sending another entitled little piece of shit out into the world, demanding things, and just never willing to, offer or contribute or, give something back, but always demanding. We're producing a generation of them. Well, go us.
I mean, maybe it's possible that they do have a racism problem. It's possible that there's some little racist cracker running around writing KKK on stuff. It's also possible that other kids thought it would be really funny to get everybody riled up.
Yeah,
we don't really know. But go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm just picturing the sound clip from the Matt and Blonde show where the spray paint sound, and then they're like, "Ah, shit, it's backwards."
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you try to take a selfie when you're spray painting stuff. All right, so enough of that because that's stupid. Progressives.
One thing I did want to
go ahead.
One thing about the guy with the "not in my backyard" sign.
Yeah,
I wanted to go up to him and just say, "You're at the wrong rally." The nuclear power plant rally is down the street.
Mm-hmm.
Not my backyard.
NIMBY.
What does that have to do with?
Well, don't have racism in his backyard.
That's probably what he thought, but that's not how NIMBY works.
The closest thing he's probably experienced. Okay, Harry, don't get us canceled. I'm going to say it anyway. Yeah, the closest thing he's probably experienced to racism in his backyard is when some white guy showed up for a barbecue and he brought peach cobbler instead of sweet potato pie. That's probably the extent of it.
God.
Both are delicious, by the way.
I don't know how we continue to survive in this country.
Yeah, well, most people make pretty shitty sweet potato pie. If you try to make it like pumpkin pie, you're doing it wrong. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not going to talk about food without functional. So Elon did a thing where he ended up buying the majority interest in Twitter.
Did he buy majority or did he buy 12%?
Sorry, I mean I misused. He bought the largest single interest. He doesn't control it, but he has the largest single interest, and to keep him from buying more of it, they ended up basically very quickly giving him a seat on the board of directors.
Right.
Now, legally, I don't know if this is actually an SEC thing or whether it is just the way their stock is formulated, because of course there's rules for this when they issue it, but it's 15% is the limit.
This is not a 144 limitation, which is what you're talking about. What they've done is I suspect that they have a separate contract with him saying that he will limit his interest to a certain level in exchange for a seat on the board. That's probably a real contract that exists.
Possibly, yeah.
That's how they would lock him down that way.
Well, I mean, leaving aside for a moment the small controversy of some people are saying that Elon didn't disclose him making these large purchases quickly enough, and that he may get his pee-pee whacked by the SEC.
That is a minor regulation violation. At most he'll pay a fine.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, where will he find the money to pay a small fine from the SEC? So the culture at Twitter is not. It's turned into a bit of a hug box from all appearances. Now, I suspect there's a lot of people just kind of keeping their head down, trying to do their job, and that there's a very vocal, very progressive group that have a lot of power inside Twitter. So I don't mean to say that everybody at Twitter is a giant snowflake, but there are a lot of snowflakes at Twitter, and they're very vocal. And they're very, very upset that a monster who thinks that free speech actually matters in a private company like Twitter has the audacity to be on the board of directors.
Does not cherish the narratives that they cherish.
Yeah, so Elon is basically going to do an AMA with the internal employees. This is great. I mean, talk about just taking the bull by the horns. This is
Nobody
fantastic.
does it better.
No, this is just really fantastic. I think this is exactly the thing to do. You've got employees that are concerned. They can ask questions of Elon, and Elon can answer them. And it's already started that Elon has been putting messages out and asking people, what do you think about an edit button? Why can't I edit a tweet? Why do I have to delete it and then go back and fix it and create a whole new one? How about an edit button? And people who listened to him said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And lo and behold, they're going to get an edit button. I feel like Elon actually is concerned about the quality of the product.
He is.
More than the people that are there. Yeah.
It's just about, they are going to go from a culture where they were kind of worshipped as the priests of the cult to somebody who wants to come in and redesign the church. And he owns the church. This is going to be some great TV to watch. Elon comes to Twitter. I think this is just going to be fabulous.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Jack's saying he has no idea how he could change a single thing in that environment. Well, there is such a thing as being in charge of development and planning and the guy who deals with the roadmap. You just find the product manager and you go lean on their shoulder and have a little chat with them. And when somebody who's on the board of directors does that, you kind of have to listen. You don't have to necessarily do what they say, but you better listen and pay attention. And if they come at you with a good idea, then you're kind of stuck. Because what are you going to do? Say, oh, I'm not interested in the idea from the guy who's kind of good at marketing. I'm just going to do the other thing that I was going to do anyway, because then you have to explain why. Yeah.
The only criticism I've heard that I am a little curious about, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal, is people are saying he shills a lot for other countries like West Taiwan. And I'm kind of like, that's a little different though than running the business. And to be fair, he has limited at least some of that to a certain extent, but he's trying to keep good business relations as much as he feels he needs to. So,
well, Elon's got to be shaking in his boots because GM and Honda are teaming up to make electric vehicles that will compete with Tesla.
Oh, I know he's scared.
Yeah, it says here, General Motors and Honda are teaming up to try and take on Tesla. The partnership aims to create lower-priced electric vehicles to win through volume sales. Yeah, that's
Honda
good.
has good engineers.
Honda does have good engineers.
Even GM has a few, but GM also has
the United Auto Workers.
United Auto Workers and a lot of inertia.
The problem, one of the problems with a company like GM is a lot of, because of the unions and because of their legacy, they make things in a certain way. And their process tend to be not particularly good about changing process. They can't see past their own past success.
Yeah.
So you end up with them experiencing all kinds of supply chain problems. And a lot of issues, whereas Elon looks at stuff, and Elon has a number of really stupid ideas. Just so everybody knows, I'm not just totally on board with every single thing he comes up with. The idea of transporting people from point A to point B on the planet by doing a suborbital arc through space is dumb.
How dare you, Harry? How dare you?
Yeah, it's pretty stupid, and I'm not sure his his Hyperloop idea, where basically we run trains in a giant vacuum tube that if it explosively decompresses, everybody dies catastrophically. That's dumb too.
It hasn't cost him enough to cancel it yet, but it will, and he will.
Yeah,
just like he did the pickup truck.
Yeah, they haven't canceled the pickup truck.
I thought that they decided to cancel the pickup truck. Is that
no.
Cybertruck
is still on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought he put a pin in that and said it was too expensive for right now.
Well, there were problems with the thing. So, let's see. I'm trying to remember which thing I need to start with. So I showed this picture to Skep and Prospero earlier today. And this is what marketing cars used to look like a long time ago. There's little Skep looking at the beautiful car, the shiny model and the shiny car. This is
like me.
this is pretty wonderful. I love this picture quite a bit. So that was sort of how things happened back then, right? And then this is what things look like now. Tesla Giga Texas Cyber Rodeo. So they opened up a huge, ginormous gigafactory. Now, what a gigafactory is Elon's way of basically telling GM and Honda to hold his beer. He eliminates a lot of the problems in producing the cars by essentially having everything that needs to be done happen under one roof. You don't have to wait for engine parts to show up from some part of Illinois to be sent to Detroit. You don't have to worry about some plant in your supply chain going on strike and then the others going out too. Everything is under one roof.
Yeah, you pour molten iron and molten plastic in one end and cars come out the other end of the building, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So here's Elon talking to Harrison Ford because he can. You know, and then there's this article about the whole Tesla thing. So they had a big old party. Now, these pictures do not bring justice to it. So I actually have some video here. Let's look at the beginning of this. And I timed it so we shouldn't end up with copyrighted music if Hammer's still looking.
Work with the Tesla team.
So Elon shows up in a roadster wearing a cowboy hat. We've got all these people here. Let me kill the sound. Leading up to this thing, it was just this amazing light show that they did with drones flying overhead.
I've seen
this whole thing. Oh, you know, so this is all happening over the factory. This is basically the pregame for the Super Bowl that they're putting on inside this hangar. There's your cyber truck that they're talking about making. So you're driving down the road and looking up and going, what in the holy hell is going on at the Tesla factory? There's all these drones lighting up the sky. I think this is pretty cool. So Elon does the whole thing where he shows up wearing his cowboy hat and stuff. But the interesting part here is actually, let's see, is that the right thing that I clicked on? Am I incompetent? Probably.
Did you share the audio, system audio?
I killed it for a moment. Let's see. Did I click on the right thing?
Some guy pretended to be a cowboy.
Okay. So basically, this is the whole thing with Elon. I was going to show you a diagram, but it doesn't seem to be queuing up the way it's supposed to. The idea being that everything is basically under one roof. I had a diagram of this. I apologize. It's not queuing up the way it's supposed to. So essentially you have the cells for the batteries are produced on the plant. Then they go into an assembly where the cells are made into the big battery packs. Well, the plastics are made there. The metal is formed there. You know, they recycle all of the stuff in-house, you know, that goes through the process of making all the aluminum. And the fact that they do all the plastics, all the painting, all the cells, all the battery production and everything under the same roof means that they're massively more efficient than GM is.
Are they making their own batteries?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
I am not kidding. Not only are they making, well, they have a partnership with Panasonic in terms of licensing the battery tech, but they've not only making their own battery, but they're coming up with their own battery cell format that's much cheaper to make, much faster to make, and has higher energy density. So while everybody else is using 18650 lithium cells, they've moved on to like 4350, I think it is. So, really? And you can make a 4350, I think, like 6 times faster, you know, per kilowatt. So they've optimized the battery form and the method to the point where they can make electric cars just so much faster than GM can or Honda. Unless Honda and GM are willing to fundamentally change the way they do things, I don't see them
Honda
doing anything
GM,
to stop.
Tesla. Honda, yes. GM, no.
But they need competition. I mean, I think that with the lithium iron phosphate batteries and some of the stuff they're doing with the battery packs, in terms of integrating them into the frame and having the batteries not be replaceable but last the life of the car, is going to bring the point down, the cost point down to where it's pretty attractive to most people.
That could be very interesting. Elon Musk may be the best thing to happen to this country in a long time.
Well,
Sure,
if
it's
Elon was here,
interesting
at
to
least
watch.
he'd have the links for all this stuff squared away, unlike me. But the Gigafactory is cool, but there's also a Gigafactory in Germany. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention, I don't have a link for it, is the one in Germany took forever to build by Elon standards. It took almost 3 years to build because it was in Germany. So he had to get approval for every little damn thing that he wanted to do. This thing that he built outside of Austin took a little more than a year. He
Wow.
built this huge factory in almost no time at all. And that's because the business climate in Texas, unlike California, unlike Germany, lets him actually do stuff like that. You want businesses to get established, get your boot off their neck, and then they'll come and build like giant high-tech factories there. I mean, Elon was very, very, very smart to move his to put his new Gigafactory in Texas instead of building it in California. He'd probably still be doing environmental impact reports in California.
I actually, when I drive down to see my dad, I have to drive right by the Gigafactory. And that is a big freaking building.
Yeah, the Cybertruck is looking like next year.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I have
sorry
a-
about that. It got delayed. That's not canceled. It was
So what were you going to say,
delayed.
Geodes?
I have a link to an article on the German factory I shared with you in the private
sweet.
chat.
Yeah, I watched a few of those today, and the German thing they just got held up constantly, but that factory just came online as well. So he's got these gigafactories showing up around the world. Instead of shipping cars hither and yon and moving parts all over the place, he's building these cars at scale. We're looking at like 500,000 cars a year coming out of these
I
factories.
wonder if he'll sell it out of a vending machine the way they do in Germany. Have you seen that?
Oh
The
God, I was
car
afraid you were
vending
going to talk
machine?
about Japan. Okay, no, things
There's
you
a
can get in a vending machine in Japan.
Yeah, no, you can get it. You can get cars from a vending machine. Google this. And I kid you not. This thing actually exists, and it's. I think it's just a fantastically imagined way of storing new cars.
Mm-hmm.
But supposedly you can go up and with your MasterCard and buy a car, and that car will come down and you drive it away.
Well, Elon sure knows how to put on a show. That's all I've got to say about it.
That's why I thought he might do something like that. Anyway, be
Yeah.
fun to see.
Yeah, it's pretty damn it's pretty damn awesome that they're doing this stuff. It's nice to see America do something well, even if we did have to import a South African to do it. All
He's so
right.
smart about where he put that too in Austin. He went
Mhm.
out of town. He went to the big bypass. You know, there's a bypass highway to get around Austin because it's just so poorly planned. It's a wreck. Traffic is terrible there. So there's this beautiful go round, and he put it flat in the middle, right between the major part of that go round and the airport. It's I just like it. I just like to see evidence of people thinking.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Makes me
not
happy.
always right about all things, but he's at least willing to kind of entertain,
Yes.
this type of stuff.
And thought goes into it. He realizes he's taking risks and he's going to fail a lot of the times. But with the
Well, I
risks
think
he's taking, you don't have to be successful that often. Sorry.
no, you don't. But I think he's essentially our generation's Howard Hughes. Because
I agree. I think he's going to be even more consequential than Howard Hughes.
I don't know, the Spruce Goose, pretty important stuff.
I like the Spruce Goose.
I do too. The Spruce Goose was pretty amazing.
I go back and watch that flight video every once in a while.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Chat is animated. I like this. Okay, cool. Let me move on to the next thing before I sound like I like Elon too much, because, you know, I'm happy to hate on him when he does something stupid, but when he does something good, I'm going to tip my hat to him. So things are getting very progressive in Sweden. I think they're running out of ideas for TV shows. So Swedish broadcaster SVT has announced a new crime drama, The Detective from Belledwin. How do you pronounce this, Skep? Belledwin. For 2023. Yep. The 6-episode series will begin filming this summer with Don't Care and stars Don't Care and Don't Care. It tells the story of a lawyer, Tilda Renström, described as narrow-minded and complacent, who realizes that the Somali refugee she is to deport is a dab hand at solving crimes. So she's basically a douchebag lawyer who's working to deport this guy, and then realizes that he's a crime-solving expert that she can exploit.
Excuse me.
Renström has recently been fired from his job as a prosecutor, but now she sees a chance to use the thoughts of the asylum seeker for her own purposes. However, he wants something in return. I don't know, maybe he has a sexual emergency.
Needs a Swedish baby.
It's how he recharges the batteries before he goes back into crime fighting mode.
I think Assassin has hit it. He's this crime solving terrorist.
Yeah. Complacent and narrow-minded lawyer realizes that the unknown refugee she's about to deport has a razor-sharp eye for crime and clues.
Yeah.
This sounds really, really, really bad.
The worst. So it just doesn't even preach at you well.
Yeah.
Sad and silly.
Yeah. Okay, then. This is stupid. Moving on.
Leave it to Abdul.
So I don't know who it was that sent this to me, but this thing from Colombia.
That was me.
Was this you? Oh, thanks, Geodes. Uranium detectable in 2/3 of U.S. community water systems monitoring records. Highest concentrations were found for Hispanic communities. Dun, dun, dun. You know, it's as if all these years ago when they were setting up where people were going to live and agriculture would be and things like that, they deliberately placed it where the uranium was going to be. It's all part of a long game to poison Hispanic people.
It's just that we roll.
Yeah.
You know, got to get the Hispanics down where the radon's a problem, from uranium ore decay. So, Jesus.
Well, as you well know, ingesting radioactive things is a problem. Now, the alpha rays coming off of the uranium decay are not a big deal, typically, as long as they're outside your body. You get them inside
your body,
and that's less than ideal. But everything is sort of, you have to kind of keep things in perspective. Now, as a Californian, this is a thing that I'm well acquainted with. This has been a problem for a long time. In the Central Valley of California, where there's a lot of poor people who work in agriculture, and I mean poor in the sense of not the rich fat cats from Silicon Valley. I mean, these are people oftentimes living not far above the poverty line, though. There are problems with uranium in some of the wells that these people have. They don't have big municipal water systems. So if you go to a particular well, it's possible that that well may have more uranium in the water than is allowable. And what they typically do, rather than filter it all out, is they just take the water from one well and mix it with one from another that's nearby and get it down below the level that's the maximum allowable. Simple, right? I mean, it's
simple solution.
Simple solution. Everybody basically wins. But if you look at this this map here, let's see, uranium. Let's see if we can make this a little bigger. No, it just makes the text bigger. That's awesome. Let's see. Open image and new tab. Okay, so let's see. We can make this bigger.
Uranium is a beta emitter also.
Well, depending on the isotope, and it can do different things. But
all isotopes are beta emitters of uranium, I think.
Oh, good.
I don't know. I think is that a problem? Beta radiation? Would that be a problem?
Well, when it's on the inside, it's not ideal. But let's talk numbers for a moment. If you look at this map, you can see that in terms of groundwater, big parts of the West basically have higher concentrations, right? And there's some stuff here in some of the other states in the East, but for the most part, it's a Western thing, because guess what? That's where the freaking uranium is.
That's right.
So it ends up in the water supply. And in the Central Valley, you can get these. So these numbers that they give here, the concentration of, what are these, micrograms per liter. These are very, very low concentrations. The federal standard is you need 30 or less for the water to be considered safe. In California, there's a separate standard for 20 or less. Now, it's pretty rare. Of all of these things that are here, you don't really see a whole lot of problems where it's over the limit, based on this map.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're trying to do is they're trying to take this public health racist stuff and layer it over the top of the science and say, well, it just so happens that where the highest concentrations exist, there are lots of Latinos or Latinx or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just the intersection of political BS and science that offends me so much. Prospero looked like she was really working up a good head of steam getting pissed off about this.
Mm-hmm. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to have that happen. It was just like, here's an interesting article. Oh no.
Look, you're going to have a lot of Hispanic people in New Mexico, hence the name, and Arizona, which also shares a big border with Mexico. You're going to have a lot of Hispanic or Latinx or whatever they are called by polite people these days in that area.
And Central California.
You know, and Central California, same thing. And, you know, they drift up into Nevada. You can see exactly why this happens when you just look at the map. It tells you everything you need to know. But, yeah, they're all, it has a higher than expected or higher than is properly proportional effect on Hispanics, because there is a higher proportion of Hispanics who live in the areas that are affected by this.
Yeah, there's a lot more Hispanics that are...
Am I going too fast for anybody?
No. It's just that a lot of these people sort of, especially first, second generation, I guess you could just say they're sort of more tied to the land, right? You know,
yes,
if you look
yes.
as generations go on, people get more integrated, you know, and these Hispanics, you know, have sort of life trajectories that look more like, you know, people whose families have been here for many generations. But initially, you're stuck in agriculture a lot of the time, which means you're using well water in the West, where the food comes from.
Well, guess what else you have out there? What else do you have out there in addition to big farms? You have big reservations for the real Americans, or whatever they're called.
Feather, not dot.
Yeah, feather, not dot. You have, you know, enormous tracts that are given over to those people, and they all count as, you know, being underrepresented, disadvantaged groups, or whatever it is.
I realized I should switch it to the uranium prospector background.
The uranium prospector background. Absolutely.
There you go.
Let's see. Personally, you can't see it, but okay. I want to put this in some kind of perspective, okay, just to make it a little less terrible. Let's see, how best to describe this. So, what does all of this actually mean?
What is a dental X-ray? How much radiation would I get from a dental X-ray compared to the numbers that you just saw there? I think you'll be onto something.
Okay, so looking at these water quality things, you know, this is a report that shows, you know, what sort of contaminants are in what sort of stuff. Okay, so in this report, there's a thing that says uranium-containing rocks are less widespread, but uranium concentration exceeding its, you know, basically the maximum limit of 30 micrograms per liter in 7% of the drinking water wells sampled, 12% of domestic wells, only 1% of public supply wells. That's basically the number. That gives you an idea of what's the scope of the problem, right? We have the amount of uranium in water. We already looked at that sort of stuff. California has a limit that's actually lower, which is 20, milligrams per liter. That's just 20 instead of 30. And then radiation dose. This was the thing you were asking about, right, Skep?
I want something rendered into sieverts, if possible.
No. We're going to go in millirems because that's the way it goes. Okay. So if you were looking at medical procedures, dental x-ray is 1.5 millirems per year, right? But what we want to see is like radiation in food. Drinking water, predominantly from radon, actually, is almost not radioactive at all. There's just nothing. There's nothing there. It's a huge nothing burger. Okay.
How about bananas? Is that
as opposed to bananas?
Yeah,
which is several thousand times more radioactive because of the radioactive potassium in them.
Right.
If you're worried about radiation in your water, you should probably just avoid bananas, carrots, white potatoes, lima beans, red meat, Brazil nuts. Even beer is much more radioactive than tap water.
Wonder why beer leaches that in. It's got to be leached from the soil. It's got to be coming up through the plant constituents of that stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting that
the point being that it's just sources of radiation. You look at the different stuff that people are getting. Let's see what
trying to remember the relationship between REMS and sieverts, because there's a funny little thing that they're not exactly the same thing.
Well, the thing about REMS is it's radiation equivalent man, so it essentially converts the amount of there's a multiplier for different types of radiation, so we look at the damage to the human body, whereas sieverts I don't think adjusts for the destructive nature of the radiation involved. It's just a measurement of the energy. So, for instance, millirems, if you look at rems of X-rays versus neutrons, you would multiply by 3 for neutron flux normally versus 1 for X-rays.
Now, you know what? 1 sievert does equal 100 rems. So, and I'm going to my little math side here. Sievert is a very large unit. Blah, blah,
Am I confusing Curies?
Yeah, you're thinking of Curies. That's exactly what
Okay.
you're thinking of. Is Curies. I was about to say that. So.
Oh, well, I'm just a humble volunteer. What do
No,
I know?
hey, you know a lot more about this than I do. But I tell you, physics in college.
Yeah.
Not completely unschooled in
But
this.
the point being that the average person, when you factor in medical procedures and everything else, gets around 600 millirems a year. From natural background, you get 200 something. The amount of uranium in the drinking water, this is just one of these things, because we can measure it, we do measure it. And then people get upset and try to change public policy around race, around what is the nothing burger of all nothing burgers. That's the main issue here. To give you the capsule summary.
Applied to a nothing burger gives you a second order nothing burger, kind of a nothing burger differential.
Okay, I've actually been not looking at the palate cleansers. Why don't we do some palate cleansers before we go to penis news?
Okay.
Sentences you never thought you'd say.
Okay.
We're still working on the being nice to people part.
Idaho squirrel attacks
I shouldn't work on
burglar.
that too much because he obviously took care of the house.
Tonight, a 6 on Your Side exclusive. A Meridian man's pet squirrel literally goes nuts on a would-be burglar. The man.
I love local news.
Yes.
So,
that headline would have been squashed at CNN.
In a nutshell, this guy has a pet squirrel. Why? I don't know. He just does. He has a pet squirrel. So some idiot tried to break in and go after this guy's gun safe.
Confirmed once he started looking at his gun safe.
I started looking at it and I saw the scratches that were around the locking area.
Wish you luck with
and
that.
at that point, I knew somebody was definitely in here messing around.
Adam
I'll
called
go in with a crowbar and pry it open.
Yeah. So the police ultimately ended up catching this idiot. And So the person, the police person that was actually asking, like, did you run into a squirrel at the house?
Meridian Police, and when Officer Ashley Turner came out to take a look, Joey just had to say hello.
And during her investigations, Joey had run in the bedroom just screwing around like he always does between her legs and kind of startled her. And she says, "Whoa, what was that?" I said, don't worry about that. That's just Joey.
Just Joey.
Pet squirrel,
Because everybody has a
Turner
pet squirrel.
asked Adam if Joey would bite.
I said, well, he usually doesn't bite, but you never know. Because he is a squirrel.
Officer Turner went on her way, only to return a few hours later with some of his stolen belongings and some unbelievable news.
She said while she was questioning the individual, he had scratches on his hand. So she asked him, "So did you get that from the squirrel?" And he says, "Yeah, damn thing kept attacking me and wouldn't stop until I left."
So what do you think? Attack squirrel? Yes,
Attack
no,
squirrel,
good
definitely.
idea, bad idea?
I think it's a solid idea.
I think it's a solid idea.
Maybe. Just don't let near any bird feeders. That's all.
It'll work as long as we enforce it. We have to force people to have attack squirrels. That's the only way it'll work.
Oh, good.
There we go.
Gunsky's still here. So this is for you, Jack. This is for you. Italian Air Force launches its own VTuber.
Wait,
Ciao,
what?
mi chiamo Azzurra e sono l'avatar creato dall'aeronautica militare.
So,
Scopriremo insieme.
yeah, so Italy has decided that they need a VTuber who can explain things about the Italian Air Force, because this makes total sense. So now we have this little Italian VTuber thing. Because why wouldn't we? So here is here's a whole explanation for people about how the ejector seat works. Because, I don't know, it seems like a weird thing to lead with. You're trying to talk about how awesome your Air Force is, and the first thing you talk about is, where's the oops lever?
Yeah. On the other hand, what are those F-16s? Or are those like Griffins? Now they've got some kind of what are those planes?
I don't know.
Huh.
But I think this is a step in the right direction. I think if the military wants to make things seem more relatable, we need talking cartoons instead. That's for you, Jack. Pew, pew, pew. Okay, so we've got Italian VTuber. Go ahead.
My only comment is Rule 34. It's going to happen.
Oh, you know it's going to happen. Well, probably some exchange program. The French will get a VTuber, and then they'll do a collab, and things will go wrong at the collab house where all the military VTubers hang out. You know how it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Russia sentences teens over terrorist plot to blow up building in Minecraft.
Wait, what?
Russia sentences teens over terrorist plot to blow up Minecraft FSB building. A Russian court has sentenced 3 Siberian teenagers for terrorism Thursday for activities including plotting to blow up a virtual FSB building in the popular online game Minecraft. 3 people's names we don't care about from Kansk, a town in Siberia's Don't Care region, were arrested in June 2020 for hanging up political leaflets on the local FSB office that included slogans such as "The FSB is the main terrorist" and support for AZAT, don't care, an anarchist who was sentenced to 6 years in prison. All 3 suspects were 14 at the time of their arrest. The Eastern Military Court in don't care, found them guilty of undergoing training for the purpose of carrying out terrorist activities. One of them was sentenced to 5 years in a penal colony, while the other 2 were given 3 and 4 years suspended sentences. So, it says, following their arrest, the FSB searched the teens' phones where they uncovered videos of them making pyrotechnics and allegedly throwing Molotov cocktails at a wall, as well as a plot to blow up a virtual FSB building they had built in Minecraft. Well, I've seen videos from Russia, and there's always people drinking and catching things on fire. So them throwing Molotov cocktails at a wall doesn't really mean anything, does it?
Yeah, it sounds like happy hour. in Russia.
That just sounds like good, clean fun.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to blow up an FSB building in Minecraft, and so one of them gets 5 years in prison.
That's literally in Minecraft. That's where they wanted to destroy this, was in Minecraft, right?
Yeah. Creeper. Oh, man. Yep. Yeah, it's stupid. Because I know Russian people, and they all seem to have a pretty good sense of humor. I don't know where the process broke down here. I think they just got pissed off about them saying nasty things about the FSB, and they just came up with an excuse to throw these guys in jail.
Yeah, that's what this sounds like.
Were they saying anything that rhymed with Aloha Snack Bar?
No, they were not.
Okay.
I can't pronounce their names, but they don't seem to be indicative of the Aloha Snack Bar crowd.
No. These are drunk Russians.
Yeah.
Drunk Russian kids.
And this is basically just a meme, because let's make fun of Amberlynn Reed. So 1922, Nellie Lane, circus freak, fattest woman. And then there's Amberlynn Reed, who's basically just sort of your run-of-the-mill daytime YouTube inspiration princess. I feel like standards have changed. Because she's significantly bigger than the fattest woman in 1922.
Yeah.
And she's not even the biggest person on YouTube. I mean, logistically speaking.
She's not even big. She's not even fat. She's not even large. We're supposed to say that.
Oh, yeah.
She's exactly the same as all the other women, because they're all the same, because that's equity.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
I'm not sure how that ended up in palate cleansers. I must have been in a mood when I put this together. Okay. Penis news.
Hurry.
So, Xi Pu was a Chinese opera singer from Beijing. He also became a spy who obtained secrets from Bernard Borsicot, an employee of the French embassy, during a 20-year-long sexual affair in which the performer convinced the man that he was a woman. He claimed to have had a child that he insisted had been born through their relations. The story made headlines in France when the facts were revealed. The affair inspired American David Henry Hwang's play Madame Butterfly, or M. Butterfly, excuse me, which was produced on Broadway. It was adapted to a 1993 movie of the same title. Now, it feels to me like there's aspects of this story that don't make a lot of sense. So I'm thinking, is this just 4chan messing with Wikipedia?
Yeah.
So Geodes actually dug this one up from 1993. There's a Newsweek article about this story.
Mm-hmm.
So one can imagine playwright David Henry Hwang's delight when he discovered the story of, this story of the democratic functionary who discovered on the eve of his trial for espionage that the Chinese opera star he had loved for 18 years and whom he thought was the mother of his child was really a man.
So it turns out that Fang Fang had a Wang Wang.
Exactly.
Wow. That's just wrong.
So the part that I don't understand is, even with the lights off, you would think at some point he might figure out that something was amiss, or he doesn't understand how basic reproduction occurs.
Yeah, Harry, just
because there's no vagina in this story.
Right, exactly. There's no vaginas where there needs to be a vagina. That, either this guy is just so amazingly reserved, I guess is the word that it beggars belief that he could be ignorant of this most salient fact. And how did Wang Wang keep the fact that how did Wang Wang phony up the pregnancy?
Well, apparently Wang Wang went out and got a kid to sell the story.
Well, sure, which is not a problem in China. I have the feeling that's not a problem at all. But that's not the issue. The issue is that in the course of being pregnant, spending all that time together, sooner or later you're going to see someone else without their clothes on,
or not.
I have trouble believing that. I just have trouble. I could maybe accept self-delusion, or maybe he was being blackmailed by the by China in some, you know, in some way. I don't know. This seems amazing.
I have an idea. I'm going to make a joke and then I'm going to hand it to Geodes. Maybe we can find a refugee who's good at solving crimes to solve the case of the missing vagina.
Okay. I like his plan.
Go ahead, Geodes.
I was going to say, maybe he pulled the classic story that was common more in the West, or even Westerns, where the girl gets quote unquote pregnant, and then they actually are sent to boarding school or something is supposedly the narrative. Maybe it's something like that where it's I have to go back to China to resume my education or something.
Yeah, and then come back with a little half French, half Chinese kid.
Exactly.
One of the things that people from China really like, and it's a big deal, particularly if you're from North China, is they like to have the baby conceived in China. Why wasn't that a big deal to this person?
Well, love wins out.
Yeah, I've known enough Chinese people, and you probably have too, Harry. That doesn't matter. Times like this, it's whatever the family says.
Yeah, that's as I'm looking at this, I'm drawn to this other headline. With Russian veto, the UN Security Council is not fit for purpose.
We know.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good job, Newsweek. You're doing a great job here. Yeah, I just think that it would be hard to hide a penis for that long. It would be hard to keep things in the dark long enough that somehow somebody would not notice that there's no vagina in the picture for such a long time. This whole story seems very, very strange to me. So that's why I thought I would subject you to it.
She's a beautiful intersex woman with a fully functioning womb.
No,
it's not like that. It's not like that hasn't happened before.
This person is not claiming to be female to anybody other than the mark. Okay. This is a dude who says they're a dude to everybody except this French person. And honestly, I'm looking at this picture thinking that looks like a dude to me. This French guy must have been seriously. This French guy must have been one of the most gullible people ever.
I have to have someone with big flappy ears.
Yeah, I don't understand that. All cultures are beautiful, Skep. I don't know what you're talking about.
That must be the golden retriever part of being Chinese. Okay.
Well, you have spent an hour and 55 minutes with us tonight. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we go, Geodes?
Not really. I do. I have one thing. What's her name? The founder of Quillette.
Claire Lehman.
Yeah.
This makes me sad because I like Claire Lehman. I really want to like Claire Lehman, and then she keeps doing things.
Well, yeah, I was about to say Claire. I'm going to be charitable and just say she's an idiot, and that's my ending line.
The thing is, she's not an idiot. That's the thing that's so maddening about it. Is she's not an idiot. She just keeps saying idiotic things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh well.
Oh well. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about Claire Lehman next week.
What defines an idiot?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well,
Skep.
I'll end with a little quote from a famous Chinese guy. All political power comes from the barrel of a gun. The Communist Party must command all the guns. That way, no guns can ever be used to command the party. Some guy named Mao Zedong.
Exactly. And I think Assassin wants to know what about the Claire Lehman thing. So, Geodes, can you just put a comment in the... Add a comment after the show's over, and we can...
Sure, I'll do the bear. I'll briefly explain if I need to. So yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll add something to the notes after we post everything. All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, anytime. Bye.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. Zoo's closed.